favorite sessions to do at any conference, because I don't have to do anything except ask the panel to answer your questions. I've got a great panel in front of you today to answer your questions, and logistically, let's talk about how we're going to do that, because we've got folks online, folks here in the room, and panel, I've done a worldwide informal famous Bob Ward poll for some questions that you don't know about, so just get ready. I might have to sneak those in to you during today's session. Are you guys okay with that, right?
Yeah.
I polled the internet. Actually, I asked ChatGPT.
ChatGPT as well?
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, exactly. So for those folks in a room right here, we have this famous boombox thing you may have seen. Look at Marisa holding this up. And what we're going to do is we're going to switch back and forth between folks here in the room. For folks that are online, we have moderators looking at your questions. I'll be able to see these questions. There's already some floating up here on the screen, and I'll repeat those when we come to those. And then, of course, I might float in these infamous internet poll questions I did. So let's do that. Let's just do Q&A for the next 50 minutes. But first, let's meet our panel just real quick. If you could raise your hand when I call your name so they know who you are. First of all, our Vice President of Azure SQL, Asad Khan. Asad, thanks for being here. Partner Group Manager for Azure SQL, Sanjay Mishra. Sanjay, thanks for coming today. Muazma Azeed, our Principal PM Manager for Azure SQL Database. Thank you, Muazma. Erin Stellato, Senior Program Manager for Azure Data. Thanks, Erin, for being here. Famous also SQL community member from the past. Another great SQL community member from the past, Nico, Senior Program Manager from Azure SQL Managed Instance. Nico, I never try to pronounce your last name. I just botch it.
Neither am I.
Sorry. So, hey, thank you all so much for coming today, and thank you all for being here to ask some questions. Let's just get started. And we're going to start here in the panel, if that's okay, from folks that have said something online. I'm going to read this out loud and see what they say. Oh, you did? So look at you. You're using the app. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to read it off right here. What is the future of SQL Server on premises? We'll do the second one first, if that's okay. You know what? I'm going to give that to you, Asad,
Sure.
my boss.
Yeah.
Can you do that? My boss's boss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think like one of the strengths of the SQL is that it is available everywhere, and we keep it consistent. And that is, there is a lot of engineering work that went in to have one single branch of coding where we put every feature and then we ship it. So the only difference is that when we ship in the cloud, obviously the cadence is faster. But on-prem, we package it and ship it after every few years. But that is our intent. So if you think about the on-prem, we will continue to deliver every feature that we are building in the cloud, as well as any specific work that we do with our hardware vendors. So when we work with Intel and HP and Dell and Lenovo, if there's some hardware innovation that are coming which may not be applicable for the cloud, we will still go and deliver that because the on-prem is super important. So we obviously see on-prem as an important market. We see SQL running in hybrid environments in other clouds as an important scenario. So we will continue to deliver. And if you see that we are not delivering as per your expectation, we are definitely willing to take the feedback and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, Asad, I think just the amount of stuff we put in SQL Server 2022 just shows a commitment that like this isn't going away. I mean, we just didn't like put in a couple of fixes. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Exactly.
Like, I wrote a book on that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, but no, that's correct. Like even if you look at like key innovations that we did only for the cloud, like Ledger and all of that, but we did not hold anything back. Like all of that is available in SQL 2022.
Awesome. You heard it from our vice president. We are still doing SQL Server. So let's take one of this. This is from somebody actually in the room that did this. Thank you for using the app. It's kind of a long one here. We're in the process of upgrading from 17 to 19. We're in quality assurance. It will take us a couple more months to complete that production. Do you think it's safe and reasonable to skip 19 and go directly to 2022? Ooh. Any of our panelists want to take that one on?
I can take
Look at Sanjay. He just had this look in his face.
Good.
See, you have that nervous look when you look at me. I'm going to pick you.
Yes, of course, of course.
Sanjay, go for it.
So there are two types of thought process customers go through. Is that then opportunity maximization versus risk aversion, right? There are mitigation to both. If you're already doing a dev and test and then you have done your stuff, that okay, yeah, my app is ready to be able to deploy it. If you adopt the latest and greatest, then you know that you are in the bleeding edge and you will be able to take advantage of everything that we have put in together. A customer come to us and they say, okay, oh, I'm ready with SQL 2019 upgrade, but we want to have SQL Ledger feature there, right? Then they miss out on that. Now, if you are ready, if you have done your dev and test and everything, SQL 22 is ready. SQL 22 has been adopted by many customers. In fact, many customers adopted SQL Server 2022 in production even before it went GA. So that's why we have the early adopter program. So we'll strongly encourage you, come to the latest and greatest. But there are some applications where there may be dependency on, oh, I'm running this ISV application, and that ISV application is certified only on that version. I'm using this particular driver on this particular operating system. So that some of those dependencies prevent people to be on the opportunity maximization stage. But I would really recommend that technology is going at a fast pace. Maximize the opportunity, come to the latest and greatest, upgrade to SQL Server 2022 today, if not yesterday.
And Sanjay, would you say also one of the things that we've made sure we do is use a DB compat, right?
Yep.
So we encourage you to consider looking at DB compat to stay on the compat level you were on, and use something like Query Store, perhaps, for example, to go test, so you can see what would it look like with the new compat level. So DB compat is a major investment for us, both in the cloud and in SQL Server, to kind of mitigate your concerns about upgrading.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any follow-up to that? Are you good with that? Is that good answer?
Yeah, actually, I think I'm too close to it. Yeah, all the 2022 features blew my mind. So usually we don't skip versions, major versions. We went from 14 to 16 to 17. Now we're going to 19. So I have to justify to my managers that we're going to skip a version in production. So in QA now we're running 2019 for a few months now, and we're fine with it. So I want to go back to QA and upgrade to 2022 and then proceed to Sandbox and production. So I can justify to my managers that in production and Sandbox will skip a major version and go directly to 2022.
I talked to a lot of customers in the SQL Server space. Many of them do exactly what you're thinking about. They do skip. They just happen to be still not ready for a certain version. And of course, we like to make sure we're innovating for customers that are ready to make that leap now. So if you're wondering, like, am I the only person out there doing this? We have plenty that do that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Let's go to anyone else here in the room, and then we'll go back up here to our board online. Anybody saying right here? Have you already got one, Ben? Right here, maybe? There you go.
On my way.
Look at Ben. Ben, come on, run.
Running shoes.
Run.
Hi, I just got a question on the Azure SQL Edge. You also had it on the left side. Could you elaborate a bit more on that? I believe it's 2019 it's based on now, and is it
still about Azure SQL Edge?
The Azure SQL Edge, yeah. Is it still an offering you plan to continue, or are you phasing it out, or?
Yeah, I can take that. So the key thing is that if you look at this SQL Server Edge, it is full SQL. There are a couple of differences in there. One is that we made it versionless, and obviously we had that experience running in the cloud. The major, the key reason we did that was the business model, because if you look at the SQL model, it does not allow customers to run it in an IoT scenario on the edge, because that pricing was built for servers. So it was a pricing change for us, which is like for $100 you can run it up to 4 cores for a year. And obviously we took some of the core components out so that you can run it on a smaller footprint. The reason it is very low maintenance for us is that think of it as like when we do the build, we can just stamp out for various deployment option. And this is definitely a deployment option, and it's not going away anywhere. And anything which we do for the edge in the first version that we did on the sync and on the windowing function and all of that, we are trying to put it back into the main SQL, so there is no feature difference. So SQL Edge will always be feature parity with everything else. The difference is in terms of the pricing model and the devices you can run on. But again, like this is a new thing for us as well. So if you have feedback or in terms of like why would you use it or why you would not use it, we are very happy to take that. Like we do see that in the industry floors and on the factory floors, there is a need for that. Still, a lot of them runs full servers because they need that power. But like if you look at the retail stores and others, they are looking for this size and this price, especially for handheld as well. So we have seen some adoption for it, which is pretty good, and that's why we will continue to invest.
Okay, so thank you for that question. Before we go to an online question, I'm going to go to the worldwide poll that I did, of course, across the internet with ChatGPT. And I'm going to pick on Erin. Erin, you're there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Erin. Yeah, okay, I'm going to try this. Is SSMS being deprecated? What's the roadmap for SSMS, and Azure Data Studio? Everybody's like, yeah, I want to know the answer to that question.
I don't see anybody nod here.
I thought I saw a bunch of nods.
Yeah, you do? How many of you
right there?
How many of you use SSMS? Show of hands. How many of you use Azure Data Studio? All right. So SSMS is not going anywhere. Okay, everybody take a deep breath in.
Yeah.
Right? We're not getting rid of it, right? It's not going anywhere. But SSMS is a tool that a lot of you know and love because you've been working with SQL Server for a very long time, right? How many of you are new to SQL in the past year? Right. No offense, you're not my audience when it comes to Azure Data Studio. So for you, you're happy in SSMS. It does everything you need. It's incredibly wide. It's incredibly deep in terms of the functionality that it offers, right? That's great. Stay there. But Azure Data Studio fits a completely different set of users who are new to Azure, who are new to Azure SQL, right? Who go into SSMS and that thing is way too much for them. It is overwhelming, right? You stick somebody in college, somebody who's in college or who's new to developing in SQL into Management Studio, and they don't even know where to go. Azure Data Studio is really more designed for them. Now, is Azure Data Studio fully complete for them? No. It is not, but we are absolutely investing in that for the foreseeable future. There is a lot that we need to do to make it have all the operational capabilities that a new user needs to have. But if you come to my session later today, you will hear me talk about those things that we've done already and are in the process of doing and will be doing in the future.
Erin, the follow-up question that they just told me online here was, how often do we update those two tools?
SSMS, we just released 1902 on Monday, and we traditionally had released about every quarter, but we've talked about releasing a little bit more frequently. So at least every quarter is our goal. Azure Data Studio is about every other month. So we released in January. You can expect a release this month here in March, and we'll continue with that cadence again for the foreseeable future. Sometimes we throw additional releases in there because we can, because we want to.
And I think one of the advantages of Azure Data Studio that you've said, quite frankly, many times, we're probably stealing thunder of your session. It's cross-platform.
Yeah.
MacBook users, Linux users, Windows users, it all just works the same across them. Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to a question that we had online here. What about the future of SSIS? What further developments, features can one expect? Anybody? Assad, you?
Yeah, I can take that.
Okay.
So the SSIS, and especially if the question is more in the cloud, most of the customers modernize to Azure Data Factory, and we still have an SSIS running as an image in the cloud for folks who are migrating. So we do some feature, but especially in the cloud, the future is mostly on the Azure Data Factory. So there's a huge investment which we are doing on the data movement in the cloud, and that's where it is. For the on-prem and migrations, it is SSIS, but obviously it's not getting as much of the investment as in the cloud it is. But if there are specific features which are more of blockers or missing in today's world, please give us feedback and we can drive those.
And we do have a site for this called ak.ms SQL feedback. And unlike maybe what you think, we actually do go look at this. Mm-hmm. So I've had the question before, Assad, would you comment and say, like, I've had people literally say to me, is SSIS is it going away? I mean, it's still there.
Yeah.
License, right?
They're definitely not going away, yeah.
Okay, how about now a question from the room? Okay, here's a question here. Can we use the boombox, please? Ben, good job. Good job.
Just to follow on from the previous question, but same question, but for analysis services and reporting services.
So same question.
Same question.
You're asking the same question for AS and RS.
AS and RS.
Yeah, I think so. The Microsoft strategy is that we are trying to rely on the cloud when the customer can, but we understand there are a lot of scenarios where customers will continue to run in hybrid or on-prem. So when it comes to the relational engine and the store itself, we know that if the customer is on-prem, there is a very valid reason for that, why they are sitting there. For many of the other scenarios, especially if you go and look at the analytics, we believe that customers can or are willing more to go to the cloud. And that's why you see a shift in terms of where there is more investment going there. So there's more investment in those capabilities in the cloud, and there is more investment in terms of how do we enable even the customers who are outside of Azure to take advantage of those capabilities. So if you look at what we are doing with Arc, with Synapse, Link, you can do the MI link, and then all your data is in the cloud, and then you can do Power BI report on top of your secondary. All of those work is done because we feel like customers are willing to, for analytics and reporting, are willing to take the advantage in the cloud. And so if I have to summarize the strategy is that when it comes to the security and data governance, there should be one way, and that is Microsoft Defender and Purview. So whether you are in the cloud or on-prem, you are secured through that, and you have the full data governance and lineage. That helps us also make sure that we don't move any data on-prem to cloud, which the customer doesn't want. So once that is done, the second is how do we make it easy for connecting on-prem to the cloud, and that's where all of our hybrid things come. Then when it comes to the analytics, we are investing more in the cloud. When it comes to the relational engines and the stores, then we equally invest in both. That is the strategy, and if you keep that in mind, you will see very much in line of like why certain components get more updates and certain components not. Now, it could be that we got that strategy wrong, and some of the customers we talk to, like, they are happy with that and some are not. So that's where, like, obviously these discussions are helpful for us.
Okay, so I have now, this has just popped up, this is breaking, from the worldwide poll here. It's for Nico. So Nico, what are the next major investments in the hybrid area for Azure SQL Managed Instance?
Okay, so we just have released the public preview for the DR scenario with MI Link at the past summit in last November, and it's limited sign up, available only the preview. We are going to expand it in the full unlimited public preview in the next month to come, as you would expect. Also, we have introduced last September in general availability ADOS virtualization. You can use a storage of ADOS, so Azure Data Lake storage or Azure Blob storage, and store your CSV, JSON, or Parquet files on this storage and query it seamlessly with T-SQL by defining an external table to it, so you can read this data. We are about, in the next month to come during this calendar year, we are going to allow customers not only to read this data, but we will allow customers by using a CTAS to write the data into Parquet and CSV. We're also not done with the formats, and there are constantly questions like, what about Delta and the others? Stay tuned. I believe our leadership has defined a very beautiful story to surprise everybody.
Now, why have you, though, real quick here, just kind of like we're on Managed Instance, are plans to increase the storage limit on Azure SQL Managed Instance?
Oh, that's a great question. So precisely with ADOS virtualization right now, customers can put petabytes of data outside of the managed instance, but on that storage, and still be making accessible. And we, last year in September, and the end of September, we put the 16 terabytes for the business critical service tier into general availability. And let's say, stay tuned, we are by far not done with this storage. We totally understand that not every customer fits into 16 terabytes. We're looking to deliver you good results.
So I'll take stay tuned as we're working on it. Okay, there's something going on there. Okay, all right, maybe stay tuned for that. Awesome. Okay, anybody from the room here? Okay, can you bring the boombox up front here? Oh, this will be interesting to see if Ben can throw
this. It specifically says not to throw this at
people. Don't throw this. Okay, got it. This says
Thank
catch
you.
box there, though.
Yeah.
Not miss box.
Not a throw box.
Not throw box.
Only catch.
Please, go ahead.
Yes, regarding distributed availability groups, they are now introduced also to the managed instance. We're using it on-prem for 2 different remote data centers. Are there any plans on developing DMVs or dashboards to show the health on the forwarder and remote secondaries? Because currently we're trying to figure out and writing some sort of stored procedure using link servers and etc. to get the info on the remote forwarder and replicas.
So is this question only related to SQL managed instance or to the to the box product?
To distributed availability group.
Please pardon me, but I would return to you this question in a way. What do you see as missing in the current experience?
Currently, we don't have visibility on the lag. For example, in the remote secondaries.
On the remote secondary replica, you are not able to observe the lag, even if you are monitoring the secondary replica.
Yeah, as related to the original primary, to the global primary. I have all the visibility on the cluster itself from the forwarder to its replicas, but I don't have the visibility.
You don't have a dashboard.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have a dashboard in Management Studio that you're used to for an availability group in general with your primary and your replicas.
Dashboard or DMVs to get this data.
Right. I don't have anything on the agenda for updating the dashboard. That's something that we would love to do, but there's a ton of other things actually that we have to do in SSMS as well, like for the next SSMS. So I didn't mention this, but I'm going to hop in. We need to go to the new VS Shell, which is a big upgrade, which gets us to 64-bit.
Wait, what?
Yay. Thank you.
Like a little,
Thank you.
Little breaking, news here in the panel.
Right? So we have to do that. We have to go to a new client driver, which is an internal underlying thing, but it's really important, particularly related to some connection things. And then there's one more thing that we need to do in SSMS that we're redesigning the connection dialog entirely because there have been so many changes since the original release of Management Studio back in 2005. So I've heard your concern regarding that visibility and making it much easier for you to discover that and have a better experience. It's on our list. I just don't know that we're going to get to it as quickly as you probably want.
Let's follow up with one other question. So do you feel like you don't even have the actual raw telemetry to monitor the link feature, the disaster recovery, DAG scenario?
No, we're doing it using a link server from the primary to the forwarder.
But you have the DMVs, it's just causing you a lot of pain to go get the data.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. But the telemetry's there.
Yeah.
The data's there.
But as I understand, you would love to have a telemetry on the primary.
Yeah.
So you don't have to
because
go.
on the secondary, you should be having this telemetry.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Please.
That's good feedback.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay. Thank you.
User voice item or email, please.
I mean, I think the link feature for managed instance is like a major investment for us. So we want that scenario for you to monitor that really, really tight. So that's good feedback for us to know. Okay, so thank you. Let me go one here to the famous poll before we see the ones on here on our screen. And I think it goes to Muwazma. What are you excited most about for Azure SQL and developers?
Yeah, so developers, so they are kind of the bread and butter, right? You are the ones who are building applications on top of SQL Server, Azure SQL. We have invested heavily in terms of understanding developer pain points, whatever framework, modern frameworks, whatever you're working on. And you must have seen in the last few months and I would say years that we have introduced a bunch of features in this area. So starting from local development experience that we introduced last year, you can get started with Azure SQL instantaneously, no cost for the developers. You can have a container on any OS, Mac OS, US, Windows, not US, sorry, Mac OS, Windows, anywhere else that you are developing on. You can be on a plane and get started, have the container and get working on it. We just introduced in the keynote yesterday the new Go-based SQL command, which is one-line command, again, getting started for developers, making it really, really easy. Then in terms of how you're building your applications, we have invested a lot into the modern APIs and frameworks. So we introduced Data API Builder that we announced the day before yesterday. If you have REST, and you can actually turn your databases into REST and GraphQL interfaces, right? So from anywhere, as long as you have access to the internet, you can get connected to your databases. And there's a long list of features that we are working on. So really looking forward to any feedback, any pain points that you have as a developer or on your teams, and we are investing a lot in this space. So come talk to me. I'm at the booth right after this, so we'll be happy to hear more.
So Muwazma, I remember yesterday you were accusing Davide of cheating, in the keynote. Would you say that's a good person to follow? I see him out there on social media and blogs posting a lot about your new development. Is Davide Mari a guy maybe you could kind of look at?
So Davide is a developer at heart, and he's a PM in my team.
And he sings when he speaks.
Yes. So definitely follow him on all the social media channels and follow up on all the releases that we're working on in the next few months. So there's a lot. I can't wait to share all of that, but there is a lot that we're working in this space.
Yeah, it's not your normal SQL anymore. GraphQL, that's like craziness stuff, right? That's awesome. Okay, Sanjay, I have one for you, and it's funny because it's in the worldwide poll. It just popped up, and it's also here on the board.
Okay.
Which competitor products innovations most concern you? It's my boss. I'm sorry.
So
should have said that.
We look at competitors differently. We don't look at competitors as a concern. We look at competitors as to understand what is happening, the trends, what is happening in the industry, what everybody is doing. We look at them as an inspiration. We look at them as somebody that has put together something and they have a fan following, or the customers are using it. All of them. Honestly, all of them. We have seen competitors with big enterprise companies using our big cloud hyperscalers are providing some database products. Some of them have been very, very successful. So there are good things in there. We also every day see competitors coming up, small startup companies where they are causing disruptions in the way you use a database, in the way you provision a database, in the way you think about a database. And a lot of things to learn from there. Some of them are disrupting how you price a database. So we look at them, all of them. We look at them, what goodness they bring in. We also look at them, what challenges they face in the modern market. And we ensure that we do innovation to stay close to our customers. We are driven by our customer needs. Competition is always a good checkpoint. But if we always stay focused on what customers needs and what customers' future needs, we don't have to be concerned about the competitor, but be aware of them.
Yeah, Sanjay, I know recently you and I were talking about, Sanjay, I said, I'm going to do some study of competition. He's like, Bob, that's cool, but what do your customers that you talk to say about it before you go off and just start comparing what's going on in the industry? So I like the whole fact that we need to make this very customer-driven approach to think about this. So.
Yep.
Okay, how about in the room? We have some questions online for sure, but anybody in the room, okay, right there, raise your hand right there.
Hi, I got this.
Great job.
Thanks. This is sort of like a follow-up to the previous question, I guess. Oh, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah, okay. So this is kind of a follow-up to the previous question, a bit on the same topic. In Azure, there are there's lots of flexibility and many different options for SQL and Azure SQL DB and managed instance and so on. What about cloud competitors that try to provide similar managed SQL solutions? Are you involved? Is Microsoft involved in that, providing more options perhaps for cloud competitors, for them to also perhaps provide similarly flexible solutions?
Yeah, I can take that.
Assad, you want to tackle that?
So there are two parts to it. One is that a customer, not the hyperscale provider, a customer wants to go and run SQL in some other cloud, right? Like let's say they are using just the EC2 as the VMs or in GCP and others. Over there, obviously, neither that cloud is involved. It's between the SQL engine that they were running on-prem. And obviously, in the past also, they were using Rackspace or GoDaddy or something. And in this case, now they are using the new clouds. Over there, we ensure that it just works great, just like it works on-prem. Then there is the thing where the hyperclouds have built services or offerings that offer SQL in there. Over there, we are aware but not directly involved. We do work sometimes in collaboration if they hit some issue. But over there, the pricing and the capabilities are more decided by that cloud than us. They define how they would price it or what feature they will work on. I think like in general, like it's great to see that SQL is such a strong product that other clouds are offering it, although they have little capability to go and change anything out of that. So that I think that if it is good for the customer, it's good for us.
As long as you're running SQL, right? Okay, let's go to one here online. This is a very interesting one. I'm interested to see who picks this one. Is there an eventual tipping point where on-prem SQL Server becomes versionless? Anybody in the panel want to volunteer for that?
So I would,
you're volunteering. Thank you.
I would say that this is something which is, again, very much a customer-driven decision that we want to make. From the capability perspective, it is doable, right? Like you asked about the edge. Like there is no difference between what we run on the edge or what we run on the server. I would say that I think in the last version, or I think it was actually in 2019, we did a survey or at least talked to enough people, and the feedback that we got is that for large corporation, they want versioned because they do certain certification, whether it is for quality or for compliance. And if you get to the versionless, then all of that system breaks. So it is important that we keep that as versioned. Because we were very much interested at the time to say that we have all the technical capabilities, why don't we do that? That also will require opening up more to the cloud, because then if we need to go and update, then we will update you on the same cadence, just like every month we push updates in the cloud, we will push it on-prem. So it is more about how much control and how much pinning in some sense to a specific capability you want to do. Capability-wise, we are already there. So it's up to you. Like if the users, the community feels like that's the next step we should do, we would be more than happy to do that.
We could look at that again. It's been a few years.
Exactly.
But let's be clear to make sure everybody online, the audience knows, there is a version of this already.
Yeah.
Azure Arc Managed Instance is SQL Server versionless. Running in a container system, running in Kubernetes, but it is a versionless version of SQL Server Engine that exists today. But maybe we should look again and study the marketplace. But I've heard the same thing, Assad. I've also heard ISVs say, corporations say, oh, I'm using ISV applications that I have to certify on a version. We try to convince them about DB Compat, but they're still kind of locked into that version number for certification. I heard that today. I heard from audiences here at this event already, security compliance certifications, all sorts of reasons why a version number is still important for them. So
just curious, if show of hands, like how many people will prefer if we do the versionless SQL on-prem?
Look, Lewis is over there just saying, me.
Yeah, see. So,
I think you asked that question.
Yeah.
Anybody else would do versionless, would put that in production? Or how many people need versioned is another question.
Yeah.
And how many people need version because of a compliance or a certification?
Compliance, certification, contracts, all of these add up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, how about in the room here? We'll switch over here, everybody in the actual live audience. So there's a, make sure you hold that boom box very close.
Hello.
Perfect.
A question follow on the versionless. Do you foresee the on-prem version, the cadence decreasing, but with more major changes?
So is the question, is the major version of SQL Server going to happen on a more frequent basis than what you've seen in the last few releases? Is that the question?
Yes. Yes, that's it.
We have tried to make it more predictable in terms of we can go it faster, but again, as you were having this discussion, which is that today, if you look at the enterprises, they go through a lot of testing before they decide to upgrade. So when, let's say, if we start to do it every year or something, it will also put a lot of work on the customers as well to keep up with all the versions, the documentation and things like that. So that's why we felt like this is the right cadence. Again, just like versionless, this is not a technical problem that cannot be solved. It is more of a customer preference that we are trying to follow. But again, as I said, like we can go all the way from 3 years to a month, but it just depends on what's the customer preference.
Okay, let's go to our panel here. Let's go to our online questions. How can SQL Server be used to support the development of decentralized applications and blockchain-based systems? So how can we use blockchain with SQL? Anybody want to try to tackle that one?
I can
Mwasma, you want to? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so
I'll chime in with you.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
So we have this thing called Ledger that we introduced. If you don't know about it, definitely learn about it. This is really, really great innovation that we have done. So that is one of our kind of steps to go into this blockchain you all have heard about. What you can do using Ledger is you can build these kind of contract-based applications where you know all the history, who updated, all of the kind of stamping around that as well. So that is one way to get started. If you have specific needs in this area, I know there are a few folks from that team here as well. Again, come and talk to us and tell us what are your kind of applications that you want to build. And Bob, I know you know way more than me.
It's amazing stuff. I mean, it is not decentralized. It's actually centralized because that's what customers told us they wanted. Because decentralized blockchains suffer from performance problems, management problems, but it is a complete blockchain, and people don't realize it's an independent way of verifying and been tampered with, because there's a concept called a digest. So imagine us building an organization. We're all developing on SQL with a Ledger blockchain, but for example, Ben back there is the regulator or the independent person. He only owns the digest. We can't touch it. So he can always verify if anybody's tampered with the data. So yeah, it's pretty cool technology, and it's in Azure Database and in SQL Server 2022. And maybe managed instance, Nico, at some point, right? Right. Just leaning and nudging there a little bit, so.
Yeah, to add to that, my favorite story comes from actual customer. So I was working with a customer based in Hong Kong. And they were building an application that will be shared by 8 of the biggest banks in Hong Kong. And so they were building, this is blockchain, this thing, new financial stuff, we can do all this. They started building all the stuff. And the banks came and told the builder, the ISV provider who was building this, no, we trust Azure SQL DB. If you're building it in the cloud, put in it, because it is encrypted, it has got all the security features, all the AD integration, everything. We trust our data to be kept in Azure SQL DB, not in a decentralized fashion, because then we have no control, we have no trust, and we'll not be able to certify our downstream compliance stuff if you just put your data all over, because our banking transactions are going to be in SQL DB no matter what. And so they had to they kept the app layer, and they took that database layer of it, split it up, and then replaced that with Azure SQL DB.
We've got several case studies already in this.
Yes.
Several customers out there published case studies. Lenovo, for example, using in their supply chain. So it is technology definitely being used today. So Erin, you're going to love this one. It's fun. Brings back my days. Can we get iSQL back? Anybody is old enough to remember that? I'm old enough to remember.
Can I ask what problem that solves?
That might be an online one.
So I'm going to ask whoever posted that online, if you can follow up. What does that solve for you that you're not able to do currently with something else? So I don't understand. I'd like to understand that.
Except we're just old people and we're just used to using this.
Right. I understand that there's the tool that you love and you know. I grew up on Perfmon and Profiler, but I can tell you that change is possible.
I would say, my guess is, I'm just throwing this out because I used to use this tool, is that it's a lightweight query editor without Management Studio. Just getting the query editor itself, that's usually what everybody used to use it for.
So if you want a lightweight query editor, then Azure Data Studio, which ships with Management Studio, right, it's already there, unless you choose to purposefully not install it with Management Studio, which you can do through command line. But Azure Data Studio, very, very quick to load, cross-platform, very lightweight, small footprint, and has a very nice query editor in that, which we are also making improvements to.
Okay, we have 1 minute left, so I'm going to take one here in the room real quickly and then one online. Yeah, right here up front. Can you bring the boombox? Come on, Ben. Let's go, buddy.
Did you do the 5K this morning, Ben?
I did not.
Okay, you're getting it in now.
If you could just quickly, briefly get to your question so we can get it in time.
Is it possible that you can implement a management view like the index usage, but for statistics? Because we have many of statistics, and we don't know if they are used or not.
You want to be able to know if a statistic is being used and how frequently it's being used. I'm not on the engine team, and so Bob can hop in here.
Yeah, we don't really have. We do have we have the index one, but we don't have the stats usage. Well, all we have is we can tell you when stats have been updated, right? Because of changes that have been made.
Right.
So it's a good feedback one.
It's a good feedback one. It's a lot. Yeah, that's a major change. Yeah.
So, what's that? Auto drop. We have auto drop on index, but not on statistic.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, just so we can make sure you get this done here, are there features that you're working on and very happy with? And what did you recently work on the past that you're still proud of? Anybody just want to take a swag at that one? Anyone?
Working on? I can share.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So we are working on a bunch of features in terms of getting developers started. As I already mentioned, the data API stuff, really proud of that. We are innovating in the space of JSON within SQL for developers, so more to come for that. really excited about that. I think those are the two I would mention here.
Quick shameless plug, Hidden Gems, tomorrow. We are free from latches. We are free from latches. One of my favorite things we put in the engine. You've been a great audience, online, in person. Give it up for our panel.